Okay. Well, let me, I guess, welcome to the I'll Discuss Anything. I'm Patrick, and I'm here with Harry, you're the illustrator, writer. I'm not sure if there's anything you don't do on A Better Place and Demon Mirror. Was there anything that you didn't do? You did everything for that, right?
Yeah, for Demon's Mirror and A Better Place, I do all the work, and I also work on a comic called StarHammer with Jan Monk, who is the writer, and Giselle, who's the editor and does coloring. Oh, flats.
I've heard a
colors.
lot about StarHammer since we last talked. I've been looking into that. There are a couple of people that I was talking to about what they wanted me to ask you, things like that. A lot of people brought up StarHammer. A lot of people saying stuff like, "Is it done yet?" That type of thing. Also, people who just saw a panel of A Better Place and then saying, "Wait a minute, is this the guy who does StarHammer?"
StarHammer is really slow burn. The stuff I write is very fast because I design it around being a webcomic for the webcomic stuff that I make anyways. So every page has to keep you interested for the next page, and that does make it pretty frenetic when you read it through it once, but that can be a good thing too. StarHammer has always been designed, I think, more for printed, so this webcomic version is a little slow, but it when you actually read it and you aren't just waiting for one update every twice a week, I think it flows really nicely.
But
it's got a very different style because yeah, it's an interesting thing. I know that Jan Monk doesn't do manga or doesn't read a ton of manga, but I think everybody's influenced by everything nowadays.
Oh yeah, for sure. With the way that the internet is. So let's talk about your influences a little bit, since we're already on influences. I don't know if we actually got around to talking about this last time, but I did bring up that I noticed a lot of your art, a lot of character designs. I don't know why they popped out to me as very inspired by Akira, the manga specifically, not the show.
Well, for me, I've always been kind of okay with not having any one influence and just kind of letting things come to me. But Akira is absolutely a comic that I hold in the highest regard. I think it's almost an unobtainable gold standard for both the comic and the movie in terms of trying to replicate it. I did a few pages of Barkira back in the day, and looking at the panels and then trying to recreate them, I just was blown away by the amount of effort in the tiniest corners. And those are really dense panels, so you'll just be flipping through the pages and you're missing, I don't even know how many hours of work.
Oh, so you've read all of Akira?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing comic. I think you could definitely do a lot worse than reading through from the beginning to end of Akira.
Yeah, I don't know anybody besides you and me personally. I don't know anybody by name who's read the whole thing.
Well, I would say that for a long time it was really hard to get them all. I kind of accumulated them over the years, but now probably with just scans online, you could probably get them.
Oh yeah. What other influences do you have? I wanted to say for the I don't know what you actually have, if you actually as a writer have a name for it. The demon that comes out of the stone in A Better Place.
So that thing does not have a name. I'll answer both questions, but basically the genie thing that comes out of the stone in A Better Place is nameless. The kids think of it as a genie, or you can think of it as a god. What it is, in terms of kind of spoilers, although the comic will give you the hints, it's a being from another plane of reality that is kind of managed to, very long time ago in human history, get someone to build another connecting point on this plane of existence through influencing. And it uses that connection, that stone, to play with a lower plane of existence. It's not evil, it's not good, it's just bored, I guess, messing around.
Very, very
it has
neutral.
No higher plan for. It's extremely neutral, which of course can lead to suffering, but it's not an inherently good, evil creature.
That's interesting that you would answer that question. That was actually one of the questions that somebody asked me. Was, can you tell me what the genie is? Can you tell me what the demon from the stone is? And I was like, I don't think he's gonna actually answer that. There's no way, because that's
it's also in the it's in the comic, but it's not integral to knowing it. And I know that other people have talked about how much they like the blurbs at the end of the comic pages, and I've also had people tell me they don't read the blurbs at the end of the pages. So
my first time through, I didn't read them.
Exactly, they're a bunch of text, but I think that they're there for additional information if you want it. Basically, the reason I didn't integrate that information into the comic is there's a lot of info that would slow things down, and I wanted things to be going at a fairly brisk pace. If I had been doing this for print, I would have integrated it, but at the same time, some people want a slower read and they want more information, so it's there if you want it.
Oh, yeah, that's actually another question we had. To be perfectly honest with you, somebody wanted to know, why do you put those blurbs at the end of your comic? It seems like why not just put it in the comic? But I think you've already answered that, saying you like your comics to be fast-paced, you like things to get done.
I think that this is also a problem that comes up when you're doing anything that's personal takes a very long time. A Better Place, I have been allowing myself one day to work on it every week for, 4 years now. It's a long, long time at the rate of 1 page a week.
Oh, wow.
And I let myself have this because, it drags. I really enjoy creating it, but, it takes a while to get anywhere. So and that's why a lot of webcomics end up kind of going into this weird limbo zone of, it seems like time has stopped in the world of the comic. Now, when they're actually all printed out, it's totally cool. You get to read through 400 pages in an hour and a half. But you have to be so careful about what side streets you go in a comic, unless you're making a comic where you're totally fine with meandering for decades, which is not what I enjoy.
There are definitely a few of those. I'm trying to think, thinking Prequel, Homestuck does that a lot.
Really popular. I think people want that.
Yeah, some people do want that. Some people want to meander around the world of the comic. Some people love the world of the comic. What inspired you for the Genie? Because my thoughts, people wanted to ask that too. My thought was Giger, H.R. Giger.
So Giger is amazing. Yeah, Giger does great stuff. When I do my monster designs, it depends. If there's a clear point to them, I'll design around that point. And if there's an unclear point around them, I'll let myself draw until it feels right. And so for the Genie monster, it was supposed to be as close to beyond comprehension as I could get it. And that's very hard to do when you're drawing a visual thing, because you're literally comprehending it. You're looking and saying, there's that.
Yeah.
And also, it has to be something I can draw over and over again. So yeah, you can make it infinitely complicated, but then you have to draw it the next 40 times in a few pages, so that becomes a problem. I've always really loved...
I was looking at your design. I hate to interrupt, but I was looking at your design for the Genie. I was looking at the fine details and the very back where he starts fading off into the distance. And I noticed that you'd put so much detail in just a very small curves, just at the very end of the horizon and stuff. You really did try to make it as infinite looking as possible.
Yeah, I like the idea of something that, even if it's on the page, it has the idea of going beyond what we can see. There's something more than we're seeing. And I like drawing organic shapes. If I was going to be given 2 scenes to draw, and one was the classic artist's conundrum of a classroom, that's very tough. I'd have to really have a lot of references open, sit down, do a lot of perspective grids. It would be a real pain. I don't really think that a reader would appreciate that any more than any other thing, but it'd have to be done that way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think anybody would really appreciate that as much work as it actually goes into taking and making one giant room worth of stuff. I don't think a reader would appreciate that much.
Yeah, and the other side would be let's say there's a broken trash heap with pipes sticking out and a few broken rocks. I don't have to pull up anything for that. I can just dive in. If I want to, I can get something to draw on. But organic shapes, for whatever reason, from page to page, you're just okay with it being a jumble. It could be completely different every page except for a few setting pieces, and your brain accepts it. But you can't do that in a classroom. It has to have the same number of chairs, it has the exact same things on the posters, it has to be in perspective. So with a giant infinite organic shape, it's very calming to draw it, as opposed to let's count how many I don't know, tattoos are on this body and they have to be in the exact proportions on every page, otherwise it looks weird.
Good Lord, that sounds stressful.
It was. I remember. I remember reading some Japanese comic creator complaining about the tattoos he put on one of his characters and talking about how he had to kill them off quickly because it was just getting to be too much to draw page after page. And
oh man, do you worry about that when you try to do paneling and stuff? Do you have to worry about getting things exactly right and making sure that the panels are exactly the right size?
I do and don't. I think that it's like a path to madness that some people enjoy doing, where they really want everything to be countable, and that's fine if they enjoy that. I want to do it more like I can eyeball the panels, all the props are there, and all the defining things, but you can, at the end of the day, you've got X amount of time to do your work, and you can produce so much during that time. So everything you're spending time on is taking away from other things you can spend your time on. There's just no infinite amount of time that I've got at my disposal. So where do you put that time? I'd rather put it into rendering and coming up with the original sketch pages. Like, I'd rather spend more time sketching out the page than, I don't know, the endless minutia. But I understand that this is the kind of thing that can disconnect people from the reality of the comic pretty quickly too. So you have to be careful. You can't just throw it out and be like, continuity doesn't matter, because it does.
Yeah, some people will get really upset about that kind of stuff. What kind of software or equipment do you use for making webcomics?
So I use a mobile studio, which is a Wacom tablet, and for years I tried every other type. I think Wacom, just for me, works the best, and it's a really beautiful drawing hardware. The battery is swelling in it, so that's something that I'm putting up with and kind of ignoring, but whatever. I'll deal with that.
As an artist myself, but, I gotta say, you're right. Wacom, whatever people want to call it, makes the best tablets. I've got an XP pen right next to me, like as we speak, directly to my right, and that thing doesn't hold a candle. I mean, it'll do, whatever if you want to draw in Photoshop or something, but it doesn't really hold a candle to a Wacom tablet.
I feel very strongly about getting high quality tools when you're working on something all day, every day, because the smallest frustration points as you're working builds up and build up and build up until eventually you just are so unnecessarily annoyed over little things. This tablet definitely has made me, I'm completely happy. As long as it works, this thing is doing me good.
What software do you use? A really good
feeling to have. I've been using Clip Studio Paint now since before the end of Demon's Mirror, so it's been a while.
Clip Studio
I think that
you're like one of 4 people I know who uses that.
It's definitely got the worst name, I think, of any drawing program out there, but and that is slowing down its upkeep, or people picking it up, but it's just an amazing drawing software that if you don't need the photo manipulating capabilities of Photoshop, you don't need a ton of, I don't know, the other weirder things, it's an amazing tool for drawing. And you can just buy it. You can just buy it and it updates. You don't have to worry about a monthly fee ever again.
That actually is pretty good. That alone makes it kind of worth it, doesn't it?
It really does. I think everybody, even if you don't use it, should buy Clip Studio Paint and just fool around with it, because if you can wean yourself off of Photoshop, you'll save a lot of money, and Clip Studio Paint gets updates almost every month. And
somebody asked something kind of relating to that. Do you because you're using Clip Studio Paint, have you ever thought about using Flash or anything to animate your webcomics?
I love animation and animators, and was really excited to try to be an animator when I was leaving high school. The truth is, I don't have the patience for it. I think the people that can animate consistently have a saint-like patience. They can just sit down and draw the same thing. And comics have some of that, but it's such a degree. It's like, if you think of an illustration, that's one drawing. Then you think of a comic, and that for a page is anywhere from like 8 to 16 drawings. For an equivalent substantial feeling for animation, you're drawing hundreds or thousands of drawings.
Well, what about something like small, like, say, glowing eyes or something like that? Some of the stuff that Prequel does, where it's just very small animations. I know that they have grandiose animations as well through Flash and all sorts of things, but just small things like having somebody's eyes glow or having some thunder rumbling in the clouds, that type of thing.
I have experiments with that too. There is a big downside to that, which is that it doesn't translate to print, and it is finicky. Like, getting that working, you have to have a GIF, and it has to be something that is looping well, and it has to be a high quality. Because remember, a GIF is just multiple images in a row.
Oh, yeah.
So, plays havoc on that. If you want fine details and you want a larger image, even with one part of it rotating, I mean, maybe there's a good way of doing this, but I've experimented with that, and it is a headache. And again, although the creator of Prequel does some incredible stuff, that does take away time from other things. Like, either you're working an extra 4 hours on that page to make it so it loops, even for small details, or you put that time back into the page. Like, it's all a balance.
The creator of Prequel goes back and changes a lot of things and retcons a lot of pages, which was something else somebody asked. Have you ever thought about going back, because you have full control over your comic, obviously, you've got the hosting and everything. Have you ever thought about going back and changing something that was in your comic and just retconning maybe some dialogue or something like that?
I've done that on the day of putting a comic up. If somebody notices, not really the same thing as retconning, but they're like, hey, why does that person still have X? Or did that person mean to say so-and-so? And I'm like, oh, shoot, this person caught something I didn't catch, and then I fix it. I feel like that you should do that, because why would you leave an error in if it's caught and you know about it? That's just do that.
Oh, yeah, just keep your continuity.
It's funny that you... Yeah, like, if you mess up and someone catches it, thank them. They just did the job of an editor. Fix it. I will actually have an interesting in-comic retcon coming soon in a better place, where there's going to be some time travel is not the right word for it, but basically jumping back through the pages moment, and there will be some very mild changes in the very earliest pages because of that.
That would actually be pretty interesting. That would be pretty interesting, where it would be kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure book. Novels, I don't know if you ever had any of those, but it'd be like, go back to page 3. Now look how things have changed because this character did time travel or whatever. And it only works for the people who come through the first time reading the webcomic. Though I'm sure you could code it some way to where it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing of, and I know this is a conversation that I'm not going to go down, but the fact that digital works online are malleable, and I know that some people feel very strongly about that, and other people are like, yeah, whatever, you change it as you need to change it. But I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet, beyond the fact that, you know, it is a tool. You can use it.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can definitely use it. How do you write your comics? How do you come up with your ideas?
So I started with Demon's Mirror in terms of viewing it as like an experimental comic that I could just dive into and do whatever I wanted to. And I'm really glad I did, because I had no idea what I was doing at the beginning. And I used the baseline story of the Snow Queen from Hans Christian Andersen with that. So I laid it all out, and I wrote very roughly, I kind of broke it down into its base pieces and said, what do I want to see at these places, and what characters do I want to introduce? And then I got to watch it then I let it unfold, and on an almost page-by-page basis, I would tweak and edit and then have to kind of update it, which was very inefficient, but like let me really, really experiment. With Better Place, I had my own story that I wrote up the larger outline ahead of time, and then I went in chunks. And I'm currently pitching a new comic that's going to be for print called Lich Girl, and for that I've done a brief outline that covers the entire story, and now I've done a more advanced outline that covers each chapter in depth, and I'm going to do a script for each chapter. So, like, because if you're doing something for print, it all has to exist.
Yeah, I'm sure the publishers would want to see that, for sure. that look at you answering questions that I already have down on this piece of paper. Somebody wanted to know, do you have plans for another comic after ABP?
So I actually have, so I've got Lich Girl, but that's gonna be a print comic, which means that no one's gonna probably see it for like 3 to 4 years because it's just excruciatingly slow. However, I think what I want to do is do a slightly smaller comic, because I really like doing a webcomic. It keeps me going, and I enjoy the feedback I get from readers. It's hard, I think, sometimes working in a bubble where people that you know are like, yeah, I love it, but they like you, they're biased, and then you don't get anybody else to see it. So for the slightly smaller scale comic, it's going to be a return to Demon's Mirror, maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years in the future. In terms of demon years, that's nothing. Basically, the main cast of demons are unchanged, but the humans have all gotten older, and I want to explore the world from Cesare, who's in the demon city, kind of navigating his life, and he's basically just not doing too great, but he's trying to get by. And you've got Gerda on the surface, over the years has transformed to an incredibly competent demon hunter and is like moving towards her goals. And they'd be drawn in slightly different styles, where Cesare's world is very light. Like the way he views things is a little bit, it's hard for him to take things seriously. And the way Gerda's drawn her world is extremely raw and detailed. Like when she's dealing with it'd be like the difference between Berserk and Ranma half in terms of
you already said it for me. I was gonna say Berserk and One Piece, but yeah, you already said it for me.
Exactly, like playful versus grim, but then eventually the two stories overlap and you get to see anyways, it's a whole I've had fun thinking about it, but it's still in the gestation stage.
You know, that's really interesting that you even bring that up. Like I said, you keep answering questions that are on this piece of paper, but I do have a couple of questions specifically about Demon's Mirror that people wanted to ask. Is that okay?
Sure, shoot.
Okay. One person asked, can humans and demons have children?
This is massive spoilers for Demon's Mirror and for Better.
Of course it is. So, I wouldn't ask a normal, basic question.
It's fine because it doesn't ruin anything plot-wise. It's all backstory. But basically, the short answer is no, in the classic sense. The longer answer is more complicated. Basically, demons are the word offspring is what I'd want to use, between the merging of a human body and a terror body. So terrors, this is the timeline of Demon's Mirror, is in the far future of the world of a better place.
Really?
And terror, yeah. And so
you're just gonna drop that bombshell, though. You're just gonna drop that bombshell on me. Oh man,
that's the major spoiler.
Okay, I love that. I love that you have that.
Yeah, so demons are incredibly powerful because they are tapping into terror energy, basically. There's a few terrors that weren't absorbed back into the Genie when it was recompiling itself, so they're still in the world. And through a merging, they can do that. Also, Mr. Bun might be involved in that, in the birth of demons. So, in terms of human and demon hybrids, they could only happen through something kind of like what happened with Gerda, which is the interweaving of human flesh and demon flesh. Would be extremely painful. It could happen. It would take substance from both the human and the demon that would contribute. And demons also don't have children in the traditional sense. They also create offspring through interweaving of demon flesh. So you'd almost be building your child.
I like your setting a lot. That's perfectly aligned with my tastes of setting. I could see myself coming up with something around the same way for tabletop role-playing games that I make. I have another question here from somebody. Yeah. Is Gerda romantic with Kai?
So, I really like stories where the romance is not the main element, but of course people are going to have feelings for each other. That's just life. I think that the way it works with Gerda and Kai is that they were really friends. They were friends. Gerda has always wanted it to be more than friendship, but basically had never allowed herself to view it as more. And Kai was friends with Gerda, and good friends. And the events that takes place in Demon's Mirror move Kai and Gerda's mind up to something that could be and should be romantic. And it moves Gerda in Kai's place to a more uncomfortable place of, are we even still friends?
Yeah, I got that feeling myself. It seems like Kai is so uncomfortable with life, and Gerda especially, and just remembering, because she's always going to be this reminder of this thing that happened to him at this point.
Yeah. Kai is, unfortunately, in a pretty bad place at the end of Demon's Mirror, and will continue to be in a weird place where the thing that will make him happiest is actually being, serving, just doting on the Snow Queen. But also, Kai understands that that's fucked up. That there's just a problem there. But at the same time, what are you gonna do? This is how you feel. It's a unhealthy relationship in a very, very true term that the Snow Queen does not care. The Snow Queen is not human.
Of course not.
Gerda also, and Gerda has to. It's going to be one of those prickly things that Gerda is not going to be able to resolve. At least not until maybe in the next story something will happen there, but it's not going to be easy to resolve.
I guess while we're on Demon's Mirror questions, I have two more. Somebody wanted to know, at the end of Demon's Mirror, how much of Gerda is actually left besides her head?
I was thinking that for Gerda, they saved whatever they could of her body, and they replaced as much as they could. But, yeah, head, brain, some guts, but, like, really, they were just swapped out as they could. Like, neither the witch nor Snow Queen are even a little bit sympathetic. Like, they don't have any love lost for human body parts. They're like, do what you gotta do. So Gerda is almost entirely demon robot thing human, but like her human element is minimal. I mean, this is also, speaking of influences earlier, where I didn't fully address it, two massive influences on me growing up, and I'm sure in the same many people, was Ranma, but also Battle Angel Alita. And Alita heavily explores what does it mean to be a human, and it explored that a lot through basically how much can you remove of a person and they're still human. You can remove a toe and they're still human. You can remove both their legs, they're obviously still human. What about everything but the brain? What about if you replace the brain? Like, you can, I mean, Alita explored that to such a degree, I feel like it's not even something I need to do. But with someone like Gerda, yeah, there's a big wall between her and who she was by the end of the book.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of Ghost in the Shell, specifically.
Exactly.
It's pretty much the same type of questioning. Somebody wanted to know, and I kid you not, this one doesn't have to do with Demon's Mirror, but somebody asked, how is your day going?
My day's been good, and also I can say that because I just came off of a really nice holiday. It's the almost in 2020, and I had a very relaxing Christmas break that just was me and my loved ones making food, being near a fire.
that's pretty much always good. That's almost exactly what I did. Somebody wanted to know, as far as Demon's Mirror goes, they wanted to know, as far as crushes or official couples, are there any in Demon's Mirror? And I apologize for so much of this being romantic, but apparently that was what people were really interested with.
The reason I hold off on going too deep into romance is because it will take control of your whole story. If you let it, romance will always become the dominant plot line. It's just too powerful. So I try to keep it at a low simmer so that it can be used for flavoring, but it's not like, oh man, I thought I was doing a comic about demons, but I'm actually doing a comic about romance, and only romance, for 200 pages. That being said, I did think a lot about the relationships, because you need to. Very quickly, obviously, the Snow Queen feels affection towards Kai. not love affection, but like somewhere between a pet and a computer you built, where you're like proud of what you did. There's a little of that too.
Yeah.
But the Snow Queen feels a little bit like, yeah, I did made this human into something pretty useful. Kai feels crushing unrequited love towards the Snow Queen that goes a little beyond what you would feel towards a regular person and into almost like adoration. This is just he's never going to fully be able to recover from that.
Like a god.
Even near the end of the book when he's like if you met a god on Earth and you were just so smitten by them and you would want more, but you really would be in disbelief if something more happened. It just wouldn't seem likely. Gerda obviously has feelings for Kai that she will repress now based on the events of the comic. Nina's got no affection. She's just doing her thing. In terms of, God, it's been a while since I even thought about these characters, but the Beckett has no real affection either. Beckett is somebody who I'd love to see more of and explore more, because that guy got the short end of the stick in Demon's Mirror, but he's doing his best.
I'd have to agree. We didn't really get enough Beckett.
Yeah, Beckett is somebody who, that's exactly with Demon's Mirror. I was like free associating at times with terms of that story, just like reading through it again. What do I want to see? Where is this going? Really asking myself that, which was a lot of fun, but probably something that you're playing with fire that way. Things can quickly spiral out of hand. On the other hand, you'll come up with stuff you're like, I'm a genius. I came up with this thing because I read through my comic 40 times.
I think you could do that with anything, honestly. I think you could just about do that with anything and then come up and be like, I'm a genius.
Yeah, if you keep going through something endlessly, you'll start to see interesting connections that just won't be there the first time. I mean, you can't, I know the idea of like a Stephen King, you sit down, you write for 20 hours, and you've got a brilliant novel is really appealing, but most people need to read through their work.
That's
more than once.
That's actually kind of, I don't want to interrupt going through the characters, because obviously somebody wanted to know, and I'd like them to get their answers, but somebody said, I'd like to know how you keep your world building straight. And I'm guessing that's how you just reread your comic, 40 times.
Yeah, I'll answer that, but you're right. Let me get this straight first, which is Scrambles is very friendly with both Cesare and Jahi, although Jahi and Scrambles. Jahi and Cesare did used to date. Cesare is someone who doesn't know what he wants out of life and is basically looked down on by most demons. I think that came across pretty clearly in the comic, but Cesare is like the equivalent of the friend who could have done good stuff in his life, but now is like never leaves his couch and seems content with just like playing, I don't know, a Final Fantasy app from like with a pay-to-win subscription. Like,
oh man,
Cesare
don't hit me so hard. Come on, man.
No, I know this is a feeling that people have. I love Cesare, because Cesare to me is someone who, as soon as he leaves the bubble of the demon world, people are immediately overawed by his power. But why would he care? It's just not even really, he knows, and he can't quite muster up the effort. So we'll see what Cesare is up to when I return to that world. Jahi knows Cesare is a waste and still harbors a crush for Cesare that she will ruthlessly crush down every chance it comes up. Like, it's just, she's just upset at herself for even liking Cesare at all. Yeah, and I think those are the main people I saw in the comic.
I think that's everybody. Yeah. I mean, unless you want to bring up the Master having some romantic attraction to somebody that you never mentioned in the book.
No, the Master, all the Demon Masters view others as either tools to use, as something that can hurt them, or basically food. They've reached a level of power that abstracts others to them. They aren't going to have normal functioning relationships.
That's a healthy way to have relationships, obviously.
Yes. They're very old and very powerful. The fact that this master died is like so embarrassing. I've also the demon world, just for some context for why they operate. Do you know anarcho-capitalism?
Yes.
It's kind of like the idea that money makes right. In the demon world, it's anarcho. I think the word's imperium, which is basically that might makes right. If you have the power to back up what you're saying, go for it. So the fact that these demons killed a master, there's no law. They're not going to get punished for that. People will think that they're super gross because they do it with the help of humans, and they're kind of pathetic. But like, you don't get arrested in the demon world. You either get executed, or people more or less let you go about your day.
Yeah, and the only people who are going to execute you are people who are more powerful than you, obviously.
Exactly. And so why would they even bother unless you're somewhat a threat to them? It's a world that is actually runs fairly well, only because it's been running for like thousands of years or longer. It's been a long time in the demon world, but it's not a place where you want to be weak in and upset people.
Somebody wanted to know, how does magic in Demon's Mirror work?
Oh wait, before I answer that, in terms of keeping stories, context, and worlds
yeah, that's
straight,
right. I apologize.
I think one. No, not at all. I have a terrible memory for names and dates. It's so bad that I, for a very long time growing up, was like, what's wrong with me? I now realize that my brain has put all its resources into story memory. So for me, I have a very good memory of stories. When I read a story, when I write a story, the major plot points click into place very easily. I still also reread through it, like I said. You should always, when you're writing a long story, every so often, you read through it from the beginning again. Because there's like little bits you'll have left here and there that you might not use, and that's fine, but the truth is, everybody's got their abilities, the things that they work best at. For me, the plot of a story is very important. I need to know where plot points begin, and they end. If there's dangling plot threads, it really bugs me. This is just my personal pet peeve. I would go crazy if I didn't have some way to channel this into my work, because the truth is, for a lot of people, that just doesn't matter. Like, when they're making a story, the most important thing is, let's see how this character is doing. They don't, like, plot point A that was brought up on page 30, they don't care. They're going to let that die. I do care.
No, that would bother me.
So I try
I'm right there with you.
And that's the thing where, again, that's when you're making your own work, you can let yourself be a little bit extra about those kind of things. But yes, that's something that I pay a lot of attention to because it's very important to me.
I don't even blame you. So
I think that's awesome.
How does the magic in Demon's Mirror work?
So, like I dropped earlier, Demon's Mirror is set in the future of a better place. The magic that Hannah uses from this other reality, at the end of the events of Better Place, something happens, which I will not say, and basically the world is able to continue with her energy in it. And this has been kind of free floating around, being used by people, being taken in Demon's Mirror. So the thing that is that huge infinity brain thing that the Snow Queen's building is basically just a way of collecting and using Hannah's energy all these years later. And that's why it's so powerful. It's like she didn't get a chance. The Snow Queen did not get a chance to really fully utilize this, but it's basically the power of what you want can be created, what you don't want can be destroyed. And the demons run on their own slightly parallel magic of terror-based magic, which is also extremely powerful, but it kind of isn't exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's not yes or no magic. It's more like just reality warping, but not on the same level.
Yeah, the demons
has.
Yeah, and also the demons have some human in them, which is why they're so much more human than terrors were. But this is a thing where that magic has become just part of culture. It's become part of the science of the world. The science of Demon's Mirror is built on the backbone of magic, which is why they're not going to be putting effort into something like a steam engine, but they would maybe have some kind of way of collecting that energy and storing it in something that you could then draw it out of like a battery.
You know, to get on to something a little bit less unrelated to specific stories, but more to webcomics themselves, I had somebody ask, how often does your work get does it get compared, or, you know, how often does Kill 6 Billion Demons come up?
That's a recent thing, actually. I mean, Kill 6 Billion Demons being a webcomic is always going to be fairly niche until very recently, as it's become more and more well known. I love Kill 6 Billion Demons. I think that world is amazing, and the level of detail and like tangibility to it is so wonderful. That being said, I love it because that's the kind of place my brain goes to anyways. And I think that there's a huge untapped zone of like, what are even demons and mystical beings, not in terms of like, are they bad and should we fear them, are they good and should we worship them, but like, what is their society like, what is their world like? So as I get into the ending of A Better Place, we're seeing more and more of that stuff hit the fan. I don't think there was any comparisons in the beginning. There's a lot more at the end as we're seeing more and more big, strange creatures smash around and blast each other with energy beams, because, you know, Kill 6 Billion Demons has been doing that for a while.
Oh yeah, you know, you gotta know what their tax policies are, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the.
I think Kill 6
I don't know if you
Demons,
know about that. That's that big. It's a quote by the guy who wrote Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. He said, like, you know, what does it matter? I want to know how good the tax policies are in Middle-earth or something like that.
Oh, I did know that quote, but I agree with that. I do think that actually Kill 6 Billion Demons, my stories, I always want them to be a beginning, middle, and end that I can see to some extent from the beginning. I mean, the story of A Better Place has a lot of little twists and turns, but it's a fairly, like, we're going someplace from the beginning. And I feel like Kill 6 Billion Demons is a world where you enter into and you're going to spend some time there. Maybe they're going in a place where they're going to finish it soon. I don't think so. I think that's a world where we're going to spend a lot more time exploring the world of Kill 6 Billion Demons. And
I don't know.
really reveling.
You know, it started out as one of those play-by-post webcomics, a lot like Homestuck did. And
I remember, yes.
I'm hoping, I don't know if you followed this at all, but I asked Abaddon if they'd be willing to do an interview, much like this one, and they agreed to it. So maybe we'll get some answers to those questions at some point.
Well, I think that Abaddon has done incredible work with the deepness of that world. Like, what is it called? Throne? Like,
yeah,
that
Throne.
area, it feels so lived in. And that's something that I haven't done as much in my work, and it's something that I definitely feel that I want to. I think that in a lot of ways, comparing my work to Kill 6 Billion Demons is very flattering to me, honestly. Like, I do my best possible work, but that really is the grade A web comic to go to.
You think so?
Kill 6 Billion Demons, that is. I do. I think if you read it through, there is so... I mean, I'm viewing it from the point of view of somebody who writes the work and draws the work. And the level of thought in those backgrounds, characters, recurring characters, minor plot threads, and major plot threads is staggering.
Do you think?
And I like that. I like that a lot. I think that
we've gotten to the point to where we have to now address the fact that there's like a 1 second delay between my voice and yours.
I'll try. I'll try not to interrupt.
No, it's not that. I'm interrupting you. You're interrupting me. It's fine. I wanted to ask you, do you think that what effect, as somebody who makes webcomics, you've been making webcomics for years, what effect do you think that Homestuck had on webcomics?
I'm gonna have to disappoint you there, because I haven't really read Homestuck. I read what is the previous one? Problem Sleuths?
That's right. And,
which was great.
I don't remember the other ones, but the I suppose the play-by-post type webcomics.
I think those kind of comics are really, really, really great for the readers. Personally, I think you have to be a certain type of person to do them as a creator, because that's first of all, it requires you to be extremely ready to react to the posts you want and the reactions you want. You have to create on the fly. Like, when I'm creating something like any comic that's online, I get to think about that page for days, weeks, months, or years. I get to slowly noodle away at it. I get to refine it as I want it, and it turns out the way I want to. Those kind of comics where they react to the audience, that's hard, because you have to be entertaining and creative and as intelligent as you would be over time, but you have to do it all in a moment. And I think it can be very fun, but also you can lose the same thing as, like, you can lose track of your plots as they keep changing and metamorphosing over the course of your comic. It's very difficult.
So you're saying you're no Andrew Hussey, of course.
Well, yeah, actually, that's super true. Like, there's some people that do things to such a different degree. Same with Prequel. Prequel is a comic where I know there's been delays at times, but it's so ambitious. Like, the integrating video games, music, flash animation, like inventory, responding to people talking, like, that is a lot. Like, comics are already about as inefficient as you can get before going to animation, but they have managed to make it even less efficient with their time. And that's impressive.
It's insanely ambitious, I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
I had somebody ask, and this is a strange question, but I thought it was so different that I'd have to ask you. They said webcomics are to comics as streaming is to television. Do you agree?
Streaming is to television, like when people will stream video games?
No, you will more like, Netflix, as Netflix is to regular daytime television.
I think that's giving webcomics a lot of credit that I can't really say. I think webcomics are like off-Broadway plays that you're very excited when you're even getting people to come in and sit down every night. Like, they're a passion project, they're always going to exist, but the chances of, like, people really being aware of them on any larger scale is extremely small. Now, you can point to there's always going to be some titans of webcomics that kind of break free of that, but there are, like hundreds of thousands of ongoing webcomics? I mean, it feels that way. Maybe just tens of thousands, but there is a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, you could say, yeah, and that's like, and a lot of these people are making it for basically their friends or family. And that's great. I think that's great, but it's not like Netflix streaming. Netflix streaming is getting an audience of millions. That's in many ways, Netflix streaming is killing, any streaming services are killing off normal, regular television.
And you don't think that webcomics are killing regular paperback comics?
Webcomics, their effect on regular paperback comics would be like if someone was trying to kill you with a tiny needle and they were poking you with a needle. I'm sure they're doing some. It's small, though. Regular comics are being killed off by everything else. Like, the fact that a company can make a video game that's free, put it on an app store, and people will spend the next 4 years of their life playing it every day. It's hard to compete with as a comic. Same with endless.
I suppose you're right. I really do suppose you're right.
People tend to lump entertainment categories where it's only fighting against itself. It's not true. People have only so much time at the end of each day, and you are competing against every single thing that could occupy that time.
You know what? I have one more question that we have here from the audience, and then I guess we're going to wrap up. But somebody asked, what do you think is in the future for webcomics as a medium? Do you think that they're going to stay the same, or do you think that they're going to change up a lot?
I think that in South Korea, there's already been companies that have started to really understand how to monetize webcomics. We've started to see that come over here, and it's been like mixed success because they're trying to use the same formula over here without like letting it grow naturally. But eventually, someone is going to be like, oh, look at all these people willing to do a lot of work for very little money. And they're going to change that into something that makes them, the company, a lot of money, and the people making it more money than they were making previously.
I know you can't see me, but I'm grimacing. I'm grimacing hard. That sounds like a dystopian future you're pitching me.
That's the future. I mean, I'm amazed that it's taken this long for something like that to happen, because where else are you having any field where there's so many people doing so much work and getting so little in response that is not being exploited by somebody who understands how business works better than they do?
Are you going to do that when
it's gonna happen.
Business picks up A Better Place 2 or Demon's Mirror 3?
Sure, of course. That's the thing. How could I not? And that's the truth of any creator that isn't independently wealthy. If someone comes along and says, hey, you know this thing you're doing for free? Would you like to get some money for it? You're going to say yes. Now, hopefully, they pitch it in such a way where you control the property. It's not behind a million paywalls. And in fact, for actually, well, like, I gotta say, to be fair to myself, or whatever, I was approached for A Better Place to put it on a kind of pay per view for the ending and then go back and like add in more and make it so it's stretched out more. And I thought about it and I was like, this seems like it'll just make a lot of people unhappy, and I don't even know if it'll make me happy, because I'm really excited about going to the end of this comic and seeing how it ends out. And putting it, suddenly slamming it behind a paywall seems like a great way to make people that have been reading it and enjoying it kind of feel cheated. Now, that's me personally. I think that everybody has the right to do whatever they want with their own media and creation, but like, it tasted sour. But if they came to me and said, we want you to start a comic from fresh on a pay site, it's fresh, there's no previous anything, yeah, I'd probably do it.
Oh yeah, I gotta admit, if you put the end of A Better Place behind a paywall, I'd probably be pretty mad at you, man.
Yeah, and that's this weird thing of like the endless debate that goes back and forth of, well, if someone's making something for free, do they have any right to take it away suddenly? And the other side is, well, they're putting it for free, it's their creation, don't they have every right? And I think that it's more complicated than that. I think that although, yes, it's free in terms of money, you are competing against every form of media. So what they're paying you is time and energy. And getting someone invested in webcomics means that they've given you a certain amount of time every day, every week, every month, sometimes for years. They've invested that in your work. And I know it's not possible, but I've certainly been burned by many comics ending, going behind a paywall, changing, and like, I get it, life gets in the way. That's just how it works. But I also have to admit that it makes me sad when I've got something that I'm become so invested in suddenly dead stop, and there's no way for it to be more of it.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be upset because, you know, because I mean, obviously you could end your comic whenever and just say there's no ending. It's not ending. And what is that really to putting it behind a paywall? The whole putting it behind a paywall thing, I would just be upset because what if people really love this and honestly didn't have the money?
Well, that's a whole deep dive too of making money on your work. And that I've known a lot of artists that are really, really good at what they do. I mean, over the years, many artists that I think of as being many, many times better than anything I can do or I'll be able to do for a long time, if ever. And making your work and loving it and making your work and making money off of it are two extremely different things. You might be the best, you can draw cool robots flying through space all day long, every day, you get a massive following, make no money. You're trying to make money off of it somehow, you could either lose your audience, you lose your own desire to do it, the people that are paying you for it want you to change things that change the fact that you even enjoy it. There's no formula for making that navigation easily. So I have endless empathy for people that are trying to make money off their work, which I am. at the same time, people that are consuming your work, like you said, they've got so much money to spend, and it sucks when something that you're enjoying suddenly costs money. It just feels like a slap in the face.
Ooh, this is some wisdom. You're just spitting straight wisdom.
I think about what things should cost a lot. The internet has really messed with our understanding of cost, because some of the best things we get now are free. Well, they're paid for by advertising, which is paid for in its own way. But in terms of your enjoyment and experience, it's free. But the actual reality is you could have 50,000 followers on Twitter and not make $1 off of that. Or you could have 1,000 followers on Twitter and be pulling in $1,000 a month, theoretically, if every one of those followers is giving you $1 a month. Like, it's very opaque.
I'd have to agree with you. I think that's pretty much... I think that's kind of the world that we've made for ourselves, honestly. I think it's going to kind of continue to be that way until we do something about it. But we've been talking for almost an hour now. I want to wrap this up here with one more thing. Do you have anything to say to your fans, or anything you want to plug, or anything that you'd like to add at the end of this?
Well, one thing I can say is that comments and messages to creators are seen. Some creators will respond to every single one. I don't do that, because and then I end up getting this weird guilty thing, but like, I respond to this person, not this person. Whatever, I go down that hole. But if you send a creator a comment, if you send them a message or something, as long as it's not just straight up like, you should die, if it's something a little, they will love that. Like, even if they don't get, I don't know, I can't talk for every creator. There's probably ones with millions and millions that just get swarmed. But for anybody that is not like a household name, it means a lot. I've just definitely gotten comments, critiques, feedback that I've really taken to heart. Just from random people. I don't know who these people are, but I really appreciate it. I've gotten hate too, but weirdly, I don't know. That's the internet, right? Some people get a lot more hate than other people. I've been pretty lucky. My hate has always been pretty benign, but there's definitely the enthusiasm or questions or comments have been very meaningful to me, and I think that's great.
So send him lots of love and lots of comments, you guys. He'd love to hear from you. Also, just don't be mean. And also, but it is the internet, so he's the guy making webcomics and not actually making paper comics. I mean, what are you gonna do?
I mean, you can definitely. I think there's ways to communicate where if you have complaints or thoughts that aren't pure praise, that require some finesse, that aren't actually mean, and that is on a per creator basis of how they'll receive that. I have definitely, again, gotten critiques that have made me think, and they've made me reassess certain things. Gotten critiques where I'm like, doesn't really do much for me. So,
oh man, tell me about it. I have my own YouTube channel. I mean, if there's one thing I get, it's mean comments, And
that's the thing. We've reached this part of the internet, the growth of the internet, where everything seems to either need to be perfectly nice to the point where you're not even saying anything, or so scaldingly mean that it's like, is it like a bit? What is this thing you're doing? I don't think you can feel this way. This is just...
They're just angry. They're just angry little people.
But I think there's still ways for people to communicate with each other where you can, have queries, comments, concerns that isn't pure hate, it isn't pure love, it's got some complexity. Maybe not on a tweeting or shouting it to the world, but definitely on a one-on-one basis it can be. Oh, and I do have one last plug, which is I recently finished doing the artwork on a comic that is for younger audiences with my writer friend Monk, and that's called Topside, and it's out in stores. I spent a lot of time doing the artwork. It's much more of a sweet, smaller adventure set in a very large interest. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Topside.
All right. You heard that, folks. Topside out in stores. I actually will be getting a copy if they have one here locally. I'd love to get a copy. So
and it's a very different feeling.
It's a very different feeling?
Yeah, in terms of like a better place or Demon's Mirror, but I still put a lot of work into it and love it.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised about that. You seem to put a lot of work into just about everything you do. Well, Harry, thanks for talking with me, coming on the show. I barely call it a show. It's just a interview process for creators, but thanks for coming on, and thanks for answering me on Twitter, even though you apparently get lots of messages on Twitter, and some of them are for people being assholes to you.
But some of them, I don't get tons of messages on Twitter, but I get them occasionally, and I appreciate them when I get them.
Okay.
I'll say that much.
Well, then I'll just tell people to tweet at you. Everybody who likes your stuff that I know, which I know tons of people who love your stuff, I'll tell them to tweet at you, tell them how much they like it. How about that?
I think the thing, and I know I keep running it on, but basically, anything I'm doing as a passion project for myself, a Demon's Mirror was this, A Better Place is this, I'm doing it because I want to read it. That's why I'm making it. It's for me. But also, that means that when you like it, you're kind of vibing with me. I'm gonna like hearing that. And if you don't like it or you're something you want to see on, I'm still interested in hearing that. Like, the vanity projects of a lot of webcomics fall into that. It's a vanity project. You're doing because you want to do it. Makes them incredibly personal, but that means that you're often even more receptive, maybe too much so, to what others think. And I like hearing what other people have to say.
I'd have to agree with you. I make music as well, and obviously, if I'm making music and it's not what I want to hear, then why am I making it?
Exactly.
Well, it's been about an hour now. I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Thanks for coming on, talking to me for a while about your stuff. I'm glad that we got some questions answered. Thank you for following me back on Twitter. That was really cool of you. That came out of nowhere.
I'm happy to see your great. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it. Well, this has been the I'll Discuss Anything show podcast thing that we have going here. And I'm Patrick. This was Harry. And we'll see you guys next time.